All right, today we're looking at Etruscan art. All right, the time of Rome's beginning, or the Etruscans, is where we're looking. And it is 800 BCE. So, comparison, if you're thinking way past Mesopotamia, the end time of Egypt, the last 600-700 years of Greece and Rome, in time of Mycenae. All right, so 800 BCE, Etruscans settle Etruria. 700 BCE, Palatine settlement grows to a village of 1,000 farmers. 600 BCE, Etruscans dominate all of northern Italy, including the Latin village of Palatine. 509 BCE, Roman farmer soldiers overthrow the Etruscan king. And 275 BCE, Rome rules the entire Italian peninsula. All right, Etruscans were an ancient people of Etruria, Italy, between the Tiber and Arno rivers, west and south of the Apennines, whose urban civilization reached the height in 6th century BCE. Many features of Etruscan culture we readapt by the Romans, so the successors to their power in the peninsula. So Rome was responsible for the Western world becoming what it was, and then they borrowed everything from the Greeks, and the Etruscans were basically the predecessors. All right, this is the tomb of the funerary bed, maybe, from 470 to 60 BCE, found in the necropolis of Tarquinia, the village Gia, Rome. And I apologize, I have more trouble pronouncing the Roman words. At least you don't have to remember how to spell them, because that was on my art history survey. Before the small village of Rome became Rome with a capital R, to paraphrase D.H. Lawrence, a brilliant civilization once controlled almost the entire peninsula we call Italy. This was Etruscans, a vanished culture whose achievements set the stage not only for the development of Rome, the culture of the Italian Renaissance as well. So here again, there's the Tyrrhenian Sea, and you see the Adriatic Sea on the other side. At the top, you were looking at Mantua, the man from Mantua, remember Shakespeare, all the way down through the peninsula to Rome, down to the bottom. And we see Corsica on the outside. We're going to start with Rome. Yet labels mysterious and enigmatic are attached to the Etruscans. Since none of their own histories or literature survives, this is particularly ironic since it was the Etruscans who were responsible for teaching the Romans the alphabet and spreading literacy throughout the Italian peninsula. This is Pharisoo and his victim from the tomb of the Argus, late 6th century BCE in Tarquinia. And we even derive our common word person from the Etruscan mythology figure Perseus, the frightful masked figure you see in early Etruscan tomb painting, who would engage his victims in a dreadful game of bloodletting in order to appease the soul of the deceased original gladiatorial games, according to the Romans. So, there is that picture. The Etruscan influence on ancient Roman culture was profound, as it was the Etruscans that the Romans inherited many of their cultural and artistic traditions. All right, we're looking at gladiator combat, hydraulic engineering, temple design, religious rituals, and hundreds of years after the Etruscans were conquered by the Romans and absorbed into the empire, the Romans still maintained the Etruscan priesthood in Rome, which they thought was necessary to consult when they were invading barbarians. All right, so this is an Etruscan hut urn. All right, it is an idea of their art in the afterlife. They developed a vibrant artistic and architectural culture, one that was often in the dialogue of the other Mediterranean civilizations. Unlike the Greeks, however, the majority of our knowledge about the Etruscans come from their burials. Fortunately, though, Etruscans cared very much about equipping their dead with everything necessary for afterlife. So their lively tomb paintings and their sculpture and their pottery that they used in the next world. So this lovely piece, one of my favorite ones, I have here because I want you to remember it. It is a fibula with orientalizing lions from the Rigolone Glossy tomb in Cerveteri, Italy. It's in the High Museo Vaticani in Rome today. All right, so this well-known tomb from the city of Cerveteri shows new wealth, and it transformed a modest hut into an extravagant house of the dead. Stroll through in Tuscan rooms in a Vatican museum where tomb artifacts are now housed show it was a mind-boggling view of an enormous wealth, that these people were very wealthy. This was found near a woman who were objects of her precious materials and intended for her personal adornment in the afternight. Gold, bracelets, brooches, or fibulae, and outsized proportions of the objects. The lions are motifs borrowed from the Orient. This is a bronze bed and carriage from the Rigolone Gazzati tomb and the museum as well. And this important woman might also needed her four-wheeled bronze carriage. It has jewels of amber ivory and 33 figurines in various gestures of mourning around the outside. All right, this is a Bucerio. Notice the animals on this outside. It's distinctly black burnished ceramic, and the signature of the Etruscans at the time. And the term bucherio derives the Spanish term bucharo or Portuguese pucharo, meaning either a ceramic jar or a type of aromatic clay. This bucharo production stretches from 7th to the 5th century BCE. This is a terracotta column crater bowl for mixing wine and water, 560 to 500 BCE. The bucharo's black color results from the manufacturing process. The pottery is fired in a reduction atmosphere, meaning that the oxygen in the kiln is restricted, and that results into this dark color. And then it was polished or burnished by rubbing with a stone before firing. Our ceramic students still do this process today, that they polish the stone with a spoon and they get this effect. Archaeologists have discovered Bucharo in Etruria and Latium in modern Tuscany and northern Lazzaro in central Italy. It has also been found in southern France, the Aegean, North Africa, and Egypt. The production of Bucharo is typically divided into 3 phases. These are distinguishable on the quality and the thickness of the fabric used, of the ceramic used. This is a terracotta jug. It is beautifully decorated with the same kind of animals. I think they look like reindeer or deer of some kind. And here's another one. This is another water jug, a Bucharo from 550 to 500 BCE. This is a heavy type of ceramic that replaced the thin-walled Bucharos from before, and it has a series of female appliques. Notice the other ones were carved into the clay before it was rubbed. These are applied to the surface. This is the Temple of Minerva and the sculpture of Apollo. The Etruscan temples had largely vanished among the early Etruscans, and the worship of the gods and goddesses did not take place in temples like they did in Greeks. So Etruscans created ritual places in groves and enclosures open to the sky with sacred boundaries. Around 600, a desire to create a monumental structure for the gods, most likely influence from the Greeks, occurred. And in this culture, then, in religious architecture started to be different. So you saw colorful, ornate sculptures, stone foundations built of wood and mud and brick. And fortunately, the Roman architect named Vitruvius wrote about Etruscan temples in his book De Architectura in the late century of BCE. And his ideas on architecture, he described key elements of Etruscan design. So this is what you should be remembering, what we're looking at. Think about all the different temples we saw in Greece, the Mycenaean temples, the ziggurats of Mesopotamia, the tombs of the Egypts, and compare what we're looking at here today. And notice, since it had wood, what was preserved is basically the foundations. It's a very different looking piece of architecture, and the sculptures on top are very different. So this model is just as described by Vitruvius. It has 3 cellas, one for each of the main gods, and it's different because the cellas within it. Those are different views of the same model, one in a painting, one in the model itself. Notice the narrow staircase in the front. That's totally different than what you see in a Greek temple. All right, first is Etruscan sculpture here. And this is from the Porta Nordica temple. And this is a terracotta sculpture that still remains from that. This is called Apollo or Apollo of Veii, a dynamic striding masterpiece. So he is definitely striding. See, he is putting his feet forward. He's taking a long stride. Very different than what we're seeing in Greek art. They are counter apposo with one leg forward. This man is actually walking. That you should remember where it is and where it was placed. Notice how decorative the pedestal that that is helping support the piece. That is totally different than anything else we looked at. All right, Zibariti, and here is a tumulus or an artificial mound built over a grave in Niue. This is Hugalag Gubar or Kuruns, found at most of the world. And a cairn is a mound of stones built for various purposes, and they might also originally been tumuluses. So you can see the whole row of tumulus over there on the left. And that's what that looks like from close up. And a whole row of them are called tumuli. And they're from the Andikati necropolis. And their external shape is a long barrel, and it's a long tumulus constructed on top of several barrels, such as passage graves. The round barrel is a round tumulus, also constructed from on top of burials. The internal structure of the architecture of both the long and the round barrels have a broad range in the categorization that refers to the external apparent shape of the tumulus. And these were typical. This is what it looks like from inside. This is the interior of the Tomb of the Shields and the chairs from the Bandicati necropolis in Severity. the carving and decorations found within. I think they're very interesting reliefs. Not quite like anything else we have seen so far. Totally different culture. All right, this is called the Tomb of the Leopards. So when you see this picture, remember the leopards. It is in Tarquinia, Italy. And the banquet setting seen in this tomb of the leopards is supposed to take place outside. So remember what, where, why, and how. The man on the couch where the circle is holding up an egg, which is the icon of regeneration. So it's about coming alive again in the afterlife. There's more interior scenes. This is a tomb from the Tricelinium found in the Monte Rossi necropolis in Tarquinia, Italy. This is diving and fishing detail of a mural painting, and we've seen so many fish and divers throughout the various places, like in Pompeii. This one being different than the others. The birds, for one thing, and I'm not sure the decoration of the zeros on top are definitely different from anything else. This is also very different. And we have looked at some couples on seats before. And this is a sarcophagus with a reclining couple from Cerreto, Italy. And it's called the Sarcophagus of the Spouses. They're reclining on heavy stylized cushions. Notice the curls and everything of the furniture underneath the cushions. Both figures have braids in their hair, plaits hanging down on front of the shoulders. Female also wears a head covering or a cap on her head. All right, we are in Arezzo near Florence. And this is a chimera of Arezzo from Arezzo, Italy. It's the first half of the 4th century BCE and it's bronze. The chimera is one of the best known features of the Etruscan sculpture. It was a legendary fire-breathing monster of Greek myth that hailed from Lycia. There it is from another direction. Typically, a chimera is a hybrid that shows more than one animal incorporated into the whole. This contortions of a fire-breathing beast, obviously wounded in its back and has a snaky tail. Notice the tail so there's 3 animals there. All right, we're at Rome and Veii as well. And this, of course, is the myth of, can you guess? Romulus and Remus. Romulus and Remus and the Capitoline wolf. It is a sculpture of a she-wolf suckling twin human infants, inspired by the legends of the founding of Rome. According to the legend, when Numitor, grandfather of the twins Romulus and Remus, were overthrown by his brother Amulius, the usurper, ordered the twins to be cast in the Tiber River, and they were rescued by a she-wolf. Carried them until a herdsman, Faustulus, found and raised them. All right, and this lovely vessel, notice the sculptures on top and all of the decoration up above, below the story panel here. This is the mythical scenes of the Argonauts. It's a Ficorone cista, and that's exactly what the drawing looks like up there that you see on the side. It's found in an Etruscan woman's tomb in Palasteria, the center of the Etruscan bronze industry. All right, there's another one for you to remember. This is a Calculus examining a liver. It's an engraving on the back of a mirror from Volsi. It's bronze again, and many of the mirrors were decorated scenes from their daily life, including inscriptions, and they convey the spiritual beliefs of the time. They were well known for relying on divination and making decisions, so this is one of the ancient practices there. This is from the 5th century, and you see the man leaning over a table, examining the liver to determine the will of the gods. All right, and then we're moving from Chiusi and Perguie. Again, forgive my mispronunciation. So we're looking, notice the people, notice the horse, the heads. This is the Porta Marzia Gate of Mars. And the Gate of Mars is a former Etruscan city from Perugia, and it was dismantled in the Renaissance, but an architect, Antonio Sangiolio, built its upper elements, which were preserved and embedded in a later wall. Arches like this were built in Greek as well as Mesopotamia, but Italy was the first that the Etruscans used to become gateways and freestanding triumphal arches. Oh, so right. So here is arch construction. There's what the arch looks like. The important part of arch is the keystone at the top, which allows the weight of the stone to bear great compressive strength. And you'll see this in a lot of buildings and synagogues and churches that follow this, and throughout the Western world, because of what the Greeks brought, what the Etruscans did. Here's another sarcophagus to remember. Notice the difference between this and the one we saw earlier. This is the sarcophagus of Lars Pluna in Tarquinia, Italy. His expression is supposed to show his economic decline. And here's another couple sarcophagus. You can imagine the couple's sarcophagus shows part of what their culture believed, and marriage was an important part of their culture by looking at their couple sarcophagi. So most people portray a married couple reclining under the covers in an elaborate bed. In both cases, the cover probably cloaks the husband. It's his cloak rather than a blanket. And here is another sculpture. Notice the difference. One thing that his arm has survived like that, but see how he is hailing. This is Alu Metal from Cortonia near Lake Trasimeno, Italy. He's a stature of the magistrate at the time, performing his duties of office. And as an orator or a speaker, he has a frontal pose that slightly counter apposo on his legs there, one leg forward with weight on the back on his right. Based on the inscription, the figure is identified as Aululius Metullius or Alu Metul from Etruscan. And that is it that we have looked at the entire thing.